Hello fellow human, hope you guys have a great day and let's read some entitled parent stories. To the first one, you can't name your baby that. I have my own entitled parent stories, but this one happened to my mom when she was pregnant with me. So back in the late 90s, when Sears wasn't sad and dying, my mother was an assistant manager. Her boss was also pregnant and this generally wasn't an issue until it was. Now, my parents spent a long time choosing baby names when I turned out to be a girl. They really wanted my name to be gender neutral to prevent future trouble finding jobs. Yes, that is the actual reason. But my middle name remained the same as when they thought I was a boy, Ryan. When they decided on my full name, my mom told her friends about it, and one of them ended up telling the manager. As my mother was on lunch break, this lady storms in, already red and furious. I heard you were naming your baby Ryan. My mother is of course stunned. She stays silent for a few moments before finally answering. Well, that's her middle name, yes? Your baby is the girl, the woman exclaims as though this is some sort of great revelation. My mother nods. Getting somewhat redder, the woman snaps. Ryan is the boy's name. Well, actually, it's gender neutral. At this point, my mother's surprise is wearing off into a bit righteous confusion. Is there a problem with the name? You can't name your baby that. The woman is practically shouting at this point. I am naming my son that. My mother stares at her, trying to work out what kind of mental gymnastic it takes to decide your choice of baby name should give you the authority to veto someone else's baby name. So? Change your baby's middle name or I'm going to fire you, the woman says, having drawn a crowd with this whole scene to witness the utter insanity that was her outburst. People who could act as witnesses for my mother if she attempted such a thing. Well, I don't think you can do that. My mother answers flatly. She couldn't even fire my mother on some other infraction because there was no other infraction. The staff was friendly with my mother, and she had brought up sales in her ear by a lot. The woman stops for a moment, maybe realizing that my mother was right on that point, and once again demands, change your baby's middle name. I chose Ryan first. Ah, yes, calling dibs. Surely my mother would have to respect a grown woman calling dibs on a very common name. Well, Ryan is my maiden name. My mom answers flatly. At this, the woman stops, still furious, sputters for a moment, and finally stomps off. My middle name is Ryan. My mother's boss named her son Dylan instead. I am actually shocked at how ridiculous this is. The second story, entitled Parent Inconvenienced by My Cancer Diagnosis. I'm currently a nanny for a family I've been with for about 6 months. They always pay me on time and I adore the little boy I'm taking care of, so we've never really had any problems until now. I recently found out that I have ovarian cancer and I need to have one of my ovaries removed. My conversation telling entitled parent about my surgery went something like this. Entitled parent. Well, did I not tell you about our family reunion? Me. Well, you did, but unfortunately I won't be able to come and help because I'll have just had surgery. Entitled parent. You'll need to reschedule then. Me. Well, I'm not going to do that. EP. We've had this planned for a month. You need to be there to help. Me. Well, I'm sorry, but I won't be able to be there. EP. Are you kidding? Me. Well, no. EP. I'm not sure how much I trust leaving my child with you if you don't care enough to be there for our family when we need you. Me. Well, I care about him a lot, and I hope I have shown that over the last few months working for you. EP huffed and stomped off. I will update when they're talking to me again. Update. Grandma just showed up and said EP called her to relieve me for the day and she'd like me to come early tomorrow to have a family meeting. Family meeting update. I went in an hour early for a family meeting with EP and her husband to discuss what happened yesterday. EP. Were you able to reschedule so you can come to our family reunion? Me. Well, no, like I told you yesterday, I can't reschedule. Husband. What are you having to reschedule? Maybe we could give you some paid time off before the reunion so you can take care of whatever it is and still come with us. Having you there would really help us out. EP. We have already made plans in the evening with friends, so we need you to watch a baby. Me. Unfortunately, I cannot reschedule. Like I told you yesterday, I'm having to have one of my ovaries removed because I have cancer. Husband. Oh my god, I'm so sorry to hear that, OP. EP, you're what, 25? People don't get ovarian cancer that young. What is the real reason you can't go? Husband, Jesus Christ, EP, people can get cancer at any age. Me, well, I'm not lying. Husband, why would she lie? EP, no. Husband, what do you think the Make-A-Wish Foundation is for? Children with cancer. You can get it at any age, EP. EP, flustered. Well, how was I supposed to know that? I just thought she didn't want to go and was trying to get out of it. Husband, crisis, EP. EP, what? Husband, OP, I'm so sorry. Thank you for all you do with baby. We know how much he loves you. Me, I care a lot about baby and I've really enjoyed working for y'all, but the incident yesterday was unprofessional and upsetting. Next Friday will be my last working day for y'all. If you find someone to replace me before then, I'd happy to train them. EP, what? Husband, well, I see. EP, you're just going to quit? Husband, EP, stop. EP, it wasn't that big of a deal and you're quitting? I thought you loved baby. Husband, EP, that's enough. EP starts to choke up and looks like she was going to cry. Husband, OP, I'm so sorry to hear that we will be losing you. I'm deeply sorry for what occurred yesterday and any stress that may have caused you. EP, quietly, it's not my fault. Husband, no one said it was your fault. EP, you just did. EP storms off crying. Husband follows and returns alone after 5 minutes. Husband, OP, why don't you take the rest of the week off? I will still pay you for those hours, but I think it'd be best to have EP's mom watch baby while we figure things out. Me, well, yeah, okay, I'll see you on Monday then? Husband, well, see you on Monday. And again, I'm so sorry for everything. Me, well, I appreciate that. Then I left and got some pancakes and typed this up. I would like to throw out there that it is very possible something is going on in EP's life or mental state that's leading her to act this way. Aside from this experience, I generally enjoyed working for their family and felt respected and valued by both her and her husband. Was this experience upsetting? Well, yes. Do I want to continue to work for them when I have to interact with her every day because she works from home? No. However, from what I've seen, she's a good wife and mother. I hope whatever caused her behavior is dealt with, and I wish her all the best. Well, I hope you recover well from this surgery. The fourth story, she would rather risk harming her child than be wrong. I was sitting around reading stories here and I realized I had a perfect story. The entitled parent is my mother and her insane need to be right. When I was younger, my father had a massive heart attack, the result being that we had to change the family diet to something more heart healthy. Lots of people go to seafood for heart healthy diets because of all the healthy oils and fats. So, shellfish and fish were a large part of the household. One night after we had a shrimp pasta, I started getting this weird feeling all over my body. I felt like my whole body was on fire and like my nose was stuffed, and so I had to take a deep breath through my mouth. I looked at my arms and giant red splotches started to appear all over me. At this point, I called my mother over and exclaimed that I must be allergic to shrimp. She looks at me and replies, "It doesn't look bad, just go to sleep." The entire night I tossed and turned, unable to catch my breath or get away from the relentless heat oozing off of my skin. I decided that day I would never have shrimp again. The next couple times my mother made a meal with shrimp, I would politely decline and make food for myself. Even though I made my own food from scratch, I was still feeling strange after meal. It was starting to get to the point I would be gasping for air, barely able to swallow, and wheezing. I assumed that being in the same room when they cooked shrimp might be enough to make me feel sick. I mentioned this to my mother and got an irritated sign and eye roll. "You are not allergic to shrimp." The next time dinner with shrimp rolls around, I just don't say anything. The symptoms comes on as usual, but I just kept it to myself. Apparently, the lack of mentioning how bad I felt was interpreted as me admitting I was fine. My mother walks over all proud of herself and sits down next to me. "See, I've been rubbing shrimp on your utensil before you eat for a while, and you're perfectly fine." Needless to say, I eventually went full anaphylaxis, unfortunately from something other than shrimp while I was student teaching, and had to go to see an allergist. After my allergy panel, the doctor declared a very long list of foods, plants, and molds I was allergic to. Guess what was on the deathly allergic list? Shrimp. My mother's reaction when I pointed that out? She shrugged and said, "Oops." That was about a decade ago, and I still cannot eat food she has prepared. She just tested me again with onions this time, just last year. She tells me there are no spices on things and then remembers when my throat starts closing up and I have to devour Benadryl. The worst part is, my father knows and doesn't warn me. So that's my story of my mother preferring being correct over me being alive. I actually have a ton more of these if anyone finds my random childhood stories interesting. I might post more. Thanks for reading. But to put some fears aside, I no longer live with my parents and are on light contact with them. My husband takes my allergies very seriously. He doesn't even allow them in the house. So I'm safe from the poisonings. Also, I know a lot of people don't understand why I'm in contact at all. The cycle of abuse is a crazy thing, especially when it's all you know, you think it's normal until you escape. I'm in massive amounts of therapy and working on my mental and physical health. Oh man, at that point, CPS could get involved for child endangerment. The fifth story. At 2 days past my due date, I should have used the expected mother/parents with small children parking spot. My pregnancy was okay up until the last month. It was 95 degrees outside, I was retaining so much water, my sandals hardly fit on the biggest setting, and I was constantly in pain. It sucked. I waddled to the store for a couple of last minute things for baby, and I was so relieved that there was a parking spot for pregos and parents near the entrance. I pulled in and took a few moments to chug water and gather my things when I noticed a car pull up to my left. They were half in the handicap parking stall and yelling something out of the window. I rolled my window down and hear, "You shouldn't be in that spot. You don't have kids. My son shouldn't have to walk from the back of the parking lot," or something to that effect. I was a little stunned to be yelled at, to be honest. I calmly told her that I was very pregnant, and this stall was for pregnant women too. She kept talking to her son, but at me, you know what I mean? "Sorry, son, you have to walk in the heat because this lady parked in our spot." So I opened my door and hoisted my giant Lenwell-esque body out of my car. She was still turned around talking to her son, and when she finally saw me, I was about 3 feet away from her window. I bent down, lol. No, I tilted my head down and said, "Do you see how pregnant I am? I think you and your son will be okay walking." And then I saw the son. He was like, what, 7? The kid can walk. She just signed and drove away. I was so pissed. I wish I said more to her. Not to mention the fact that the parking spot doesn't belong to her by default, just because she has a child. The sixth story. Mother thinks she has rights to my child and treats him like a doll to show off. Honestly, I just need a place to vent. My mother is the entitled parent in this story. Her and I have never had a great relationship. She resented me growing up because she was a single mom and never wanted children. She would never spend time or engage with me and would instead throw money at me to show she cared. Now I'm grown up and independent and just had a baby of my own, and she feels entitled to my son. I've made certain decisions about his upbringing that I'm trying to adhere to. Nothing crazy, just trying to avoid using unnecessary products on him. No baby lotion, no diaper cream unless he gets a rash, homemade baby food, etc. He's now 4 months and it has been working well for us. My mother is very insistent that she gets to see him 2 to 3 times a week. She refers to herself as Glamma, a mix of glam and grandma, and has already procured a few items that says best grandma ever. I have been very hesitant to let her watch him for extended periods of time. I didn't have the best upbringing and honestly believe she would not do what's best for my son. She has always been a very materialistic person and extremely concerned about the image she represents to other people. So I get anxiety thinking of him staying overnight at her place. She keeps asking for him to spend the night. She's saying doing it for me because I need to sleep. But I know it's because she likes the novelty of having a baby around. She first started asking for him to spend the night at her place when he was like 2 weeks old. I've said no every time. When she was first allowed to babysit him, I have to set ground rules because she kept trying to plan parties whenever he was over. She was trying to show him off to all her friends and neighbors. The thing is, he's a baby. Large groups of people are not good for baby because their immune systems are weak, and Out City has had a number of measles outbreaks. I had to tell her repeatedly that she couldn't be inviting a group of strangers over to pass him around like a doll. She finally agreed, and I let him spend a few hours at her place. Still, she kept asking for him to spend the night. She also calls me every day asking when he's going to visit her again and offering to take him off my hands for a few days like he's an inconvenience. My husband had to go to BC for a wedding, so I was alone for a week. It was hard. 6 days into it, and I was the end of my rope. I had barely had any adult interaction and had only slept like 3 hours a day. So, I called my mother up and asked her if my son and I can spend the night at her place. I needed sleep, but I didn't want to leave him there without me all night. I figured this would be a good compromise. I would be available if anything went wrong, and she would get off my back about him staying over. She had been nagging me for weeks about how I should give him Nablem, and he would sleep through the night. He was a preemie, and our pediatrician said to wait for solids, but she thought she knew best. I had to constantly tell her not to feed him anything but his milk. The night came where I was supposed to go to her place. I get there, and there are 15 other people over. Turns out she was having a dinner party. Whether or not she had this arranged before I asked to come over, I don't know. I told her my son goes to bed at 8 and you really needed to sleep. She assured me everyone would be gone by 9. Well, that didn't happen. They ended up starting a bonfire, and she's trying to get me to sit by the fire with my son. I tell her I don't want him around all that smoke. He's only 4 months old. So he needs to stay in the house, besides it's 8, and he needs to go to bed. She tells me I'm being unreasonable and should just let him sleep by the fire. I put my foot down and says no. He ends up in his bassinet and I'm waiting for the party to be done so I can sleep. Because my husband has been gone, I've been dealing with the babe on my own for 6 days. My sleep schedule has been completely out of whack. I was hoping to take some sleeping pills to get a good night's rest since she was going to eat him through the night. So, I'm waiting for her to come in and take over for me. 10 rolls around and she hops in for a drink before heading back out. I asked her again how late the party is going to go since I'm desperate to get some sleep. She tells me it should be over soon, again, and that she cannot stay in the house because she has guests over and she needs to entertain them. 10:45 comes and she's still at the bonfire. Again, she comes in, grabs something, and she sees that I'm still up. She tells me that I'm being silly and I should just go to sleep. She doesn't seem to understand that I have insomnia and need to take sleeping pills and can't do that until someone else can watch my son. The someone being her, since I asked and she offered. I remind her that I was there to sleep and was waiting on her. She then tells me I'm being ungrateful since she had this party planned and couldn't just ask everyone to leave. She said that I should just go to sleep and not to worry about my son so much. I tell her she can't be taking care of him if she's outside. She wouldn't even hear him if he wakes up. She said I should stop stressing, that people will leave soon, and went back to her party. 11:30 comes around, and I'm so tired I start crying. I can't sleep, and I wasn't getting the help I asked for. I decide to just take my son and go home. If I was doing it on my own, I'd rather be around my own things and in my own bed. I pack him up and send her a text saying that she was too preoccupied to watch my son and that we were going home. She didn't even see my message until 12:30. How well could she have watched him if she didn't leave her bonfire until then? I ended up getting a string of messages saying that it was unfair of me to take him away. That I shouldn't say I didn't care because she spent $700 on him that day, so obviously she cared. I never mentioned anything about caring or not caring. She said that I was being ungrateful because if I had stayed, I would have been able to sleep in the morning while she took care of him. I don't trust for 1 minute that she would have done right by him. Her guests were taking up all her time. A week goes by and she asked twice again if he can stay the night at her place. I have no faith in her watching him overnight, but I agree to let her watch him during the day Saturday. She says she's going to sleep in, but should pick him up at around 9 or 10. 11 rolls around and I haven't heard from her. I give her a call and she says she just got home and that they can't pick him up until later, so I should just drop him off at her place. She was supposed to pick him up because she lives 30 minutes out of town on an acreage, but drives right past our house when she goes shopping. I tried telling her it is too inconvenient to drive him to her place, I'll just keep him with me. But she wears me down and I eventually make the drive out to her place. I tell her I'll pick him up in the evening around like 9:30 or 10. At 5, I get a text from her saying she's decided to have a bonfire and has invited a bunch of people over. Seriously, the exact same thing as the week before. And tell her again, I don't want my son sitting out in the hot sun or hanging around the smoke from the fire. I tell her I don't care what she does, but I will pick up my son if she can't watch him. She tells me she is watching him and that I don't need to take him. I go to get him and I'm pissed off. I have asked her time and time again not to have him around a group of strangers, bid to have him around smoke, and she just won't listen. I didn't even want to send him to her place, but she just kept nagging that she should watch him. So I planned my day around him being with her and had to cancel a D&D game in the middle of the session because she couldn't respect my wishes. When I pick him up, she starts yelling that I'm being ungrateful, she was doing a great job watching him, and how much all her guests are loving him. She tells me that I'm being unreasonable and rude. To top it off, she tells me that she's going to tell my Baba about my behavior and that Baba will give me a talking to. What the duck, woman? I should have known better than to try to trust her. She insists on babysitting my dog every weekend. He has pancreatitis and can't eat fatty foods. He gets extremely sick. But she ignores when I say this and continues to feed him bacon because he likes it. If she can't take care of a dog, how the hell did she think she could take care of a child? And the worst is how she keeps acting like a victim, saying I'm treating her unfairly. Man, I really needed to get this off my chest. Well, I think that you're doing great. The fact that you have the resolve to stick to your boundaries even when sleep deprived and beyond exhausted speaks to your strength. That's it for today, fellow humans. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys next time.